Good evening, everyone, and welcome to One on One with Unc. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to share some numbers with you. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical abuse, be it uh, a slap, a push, a shove. 1 in 7 women and 1 in 25 men have been injured. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe physical abuse by an intimate partner in their lifetime, be it burning, beating, or strangling. Now, these numbers only cover the United States. They do not include numbers from other countries or instances that were never reported. My guest tonight is an author, a coach, an international philanthropist. And yes, she also is a domestic abuse survivor. In 2017, she founded the nonprofit Unsilenced Voices with the primary focus on encouraging victims to break free and speak out about their experiences. Without further ado, I bring you Miss Michelle Jewsbury. Good
Thank you.
evening, Michelle, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited
Oh,
to be able to impact your audience.
well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you. Um, as I said before, I've read and listened to and seen so many things. And let's talk a little bit about the early Michelle Jewsbury growing up.
The young and boisterous Michelle Jewsbury, huh? All right. So I'll briefly start from the beginning. I was born in North Idaho to two amazing parents. My mom and my dad were hard workers, very loving. They did whatever it took to give my brother and I the lifestyle that they thought that we deserved and that we wanted. And growing up was um, we always had love around us, which was good.
Okay, that's
And
important.
my dad was military, so growing up we moved around a lot. And I switched schools very frequently, unfortunately, but we always knew that we could rely on each other.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to fast forward my life until I'm about 16 years old. And at this point, I was a cheerleader and I was on the National Honor Society in high school and
Whoa.
doing my work, right? Thinking that I was
Uh
on my way to success.
huh.
Uh, and I was babysitting at the time, and I knew that I wanted a real job. So my mom was a manager in a restaurant. So I asked her to train me, and she trained me from hostess to server and bartender. I even did dishes in the back of the house for some quite some time. And
Okay.
then I knew that I wanted something even more with my life. And when I graduated high school, I decided that something even more was to move to Hollywood, California, and become a movie star.
Ah, City of the Stars.
City of the Stars. So that's what I did. I sold all of my belongings except for all my shoes and clothes, packed my car to the brim with my shoes and clothes, and drove from North Idaho all the way down to Hollywood, California. And things were going well. I was starring in independent plays and films. I was doing commercials. I loved the entertainment industry. And again, in my life, I thought that I was on my way to success. I thought
Living the dream.
living the dream, exactly. And lo and behold, I ended up meeting somebody, and this somebody courted me and sent me gifts and flowers and wanted to pursue me in a romantic relationship. And I said yes. So in 2011, the end of 2011, I began a romantic relationship with a man that we'll call Paul.
Okay.
And he and I started this fairy tale romance. And this fairy tale romance for me was amazing, and it was one of the best relationships I had ever had. And he introduced me to a different lifestyle, and we went to baseball games and basketball games and concerts and traveled a lot. And I thought that this person was somebody that I was going to marry. And about 4 months into that relationship, my head went through the wall, and the
Wow.
manipulation and the psychological abuse that happened prior to that is what kept me staying in that relationship, even though the physical violence started so soon. And I ended up staying with that abuser for 4 years. And during those 4 years, I endured psychological manipulation, financial abuse, physical violence, sexual abuse. And when I finally escaped the relationship is the story that we'll get into next, I'm sure.
Now, a lot of people say, well, why did you stay? Why don't they leave? And I used to be one of those people and being transparent until I started to listen and read and learn and understand that they're manipulative,
Yeah.
that they have, and in all honesty, I'm wondering if you were his first rodeo, because I'm sure that in the past they have practiced this and they've experimented with it. They've seen other people do it and they're like, okay, I'm going to try this and see how this works. And so, and then they get to the point where they're like, okay, I'm going to do my mission myself, and I'm going to go and I'm going to see how this works. And I've got this pretty young lady, and she's sweet and she's nice, and she thinks that I'm her, knight in shining armor. I'm going to sweep her not only off her feet, I'm going to sweep her off this earth if I have to. And you know, you learn that they just become controlling and manipulative and tell you all these things, and they work at your self-esteem, and they alienate you from your friends and family, and then they take control, and they tell you that nobody else is going to want you. So after I
Yeah,
start to
well,
understand.
you touched on a very good thing there, Uncle. And it I wasn't his first rodeo. And he had assaulted somebody severely before me as well. But of course, going into a romantic relationship, you don't know that. And
No.
there are
Well,
many red flags, right? And I didn't
mm-hmm.
look at the red flags. I just wanted this fairy tale romance to happen for my life. And if I would have seen the red flags, looked, we have a device called the cell phone these days, which is a mini computer where we can do
Mm-hmm.
research and look people up on
Google.
Google. Exactly.
Yes.
And social media. I can talk to his friends, family. I would have understood that he was narcissistic, that he had emotional problems and issues going into this relationship, that the gal before him suffered some severe emotional damages.
Wow.
And then it would have saved me for 4 years of abuse. And he actually assaulted somebody after me. And that's when I finally was able to really break free from the relationship and really understand more of the cycle, more of the dynamics, understand that even in his subconscious, he was controlling and manipulative, that
Mm-hmm.
his subconscious was what was controlling him because hurt people hurt people.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
that is absolutely true. And I've started to begin to understand the cycle and how it works, and so I've become less judgmental because, like I said, I was one of those people that said, "Why don't they just pack up and go?" But
Mhm.
it's just not that easy to just pack up, even if you don't have kids involved. They've told you that you're not worthy. Nobody's going to want you. I'm the only one that's going to take care of you. I got you.
Yeah.
And
And
once,
you believe them, right? You
oh
believe
yeah,
them. Yeah, for sure. But the thing is a lot of people do ask me, why did you stay? And there's a cycle in domestic violence. That cycle goes from walking on eggshells to a big blow up, whether it's emotional or physical or sexual, to then the apology stage. And that apology stage, the "I'm sorry, Michelle, I love you so much. I promise I will never hurt you again." That's what keeps most victims trapped in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And another thing, it's not always abusive. So the reason people stay is for the honeymoon stage, is for
Hmm.
the beauty of a romantic relationship and wanting it to stay like that forever.
Yeah, and I think eventually you start to think, well, okay, in order for me to have this, I just have to put up with this.
Mhm.
Not understanding that you really don't have to, but because you want what you want,
Yeah.
and you don't understand, or there's something in you that knows, but it's like, no, it's not he's not like this all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody ticked him off at work, or something like that. So then you begin to walk around the house trying to figure out, what can I do to not upset them.
Yep.
And
Yep.
lo and behold, you're not understanding that no matter what you do, they will find something that upsets them and will blame it on you,
Yeah.
because
Unfortunately,
it's
that's
always your fault. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me say. That's that narcissistic thing. And it's I've never understood it, but as I've gotten older, I understand some things more than others. And I do sympathize with people that are going through it, and or have
Mhm.
been through it, and I have a little better understanding. And like I said, now it keeps me from being so judgmental, because I have a different picture of what's going on here.
Well, that's good. One person at a time, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
what we need to do is a lot of people don't understand, and it is a cycle. And instead of a survivor or victim getting mad at somebody for not understanding, it's we work together to make other people aware. And
Hmm.
this is why we created Unsilenced Voices. So
Yes.
we'll get into that too.
Now, getting out,
Yeah.
what was before I get there, your parents, did they know, or how did you hide? Because you have to be almost like a magician to be able to hide, because in listening to some of the violence that was in the relationship, it how were you able to hide the the marks and the
Yeah. So one of the red flags is moving the relationship too quickly and then isolation.
Mhm.
So Paul moved the relationship so fast where I ended up moving in with him roughly 4 or 5 months into our relationship. And then when I was moving in with him, then he started to isolate me even more. He told me that I couldn't work. He put down the association, the congregation, my church members, um, tried to keep me more um, in solitude. And when I'm more in solitude, that means I didn't have direct contact with my parents all the time. I called them on the phone, but I never told them what was going on. See, I was
Okay.
located in California and they were in Idaho or Portland.
Oh,
My
okay.
dad was military. And the people who I did see, I used to wear long sleeve shirts all the time and ball caps and sunglasses. So
Ooh.
Paul got really good after the first really bad incident. He got really good at putting bruises on me in places where people don't typically look.
Okay.
So the first really bad fight was October of 2012, and I was black and blue and bloodied, and I had a black eye that you couldn't see the color of my eyes whatsoever. It was bloodshot red. My face
Wow.
swelled up. My body swelled up. It was really bad. I was strangled and spit on, and this fight lasted roughly 4 hours. So you can imagine what I looked like after 4 hours in a boxing match.
Wow.
I ended up staying home at our house while things were healing, and a lot of emotions went through my head during this time. And he he would really come home from work and apologize. And there was one time in particular that I got so angry I looked in a mirror, and I saw the bruises all over my face, and um, I was really worried that my eye wasn't going to heal. People used to think I had jaundice, and I ended up smashing a mirror in our bathroom.
Hmm.
Uh,
So
there
you
were
wouldn't have to look at it.
there was a lot of emotions, so he ended up covering the mirrors with blankets. Um, but it was turmoil, and so that turmoil then led into the walking on eggshells stage. Prior to that was the honeymoon and apology stage. So it was just cyclical, right? It just continued over and over and over again. And even though I went through those severe beatings, there was still amazing times where we drove down the freeway together singing songs, where we went to concerts and laughed, where we went to movie theaters and threw popcorn on each other. It was fun, right? There
Yeah,
was fun
yeah.
aspects to the relationship. And those are things that we must identify. Those are things that we must see as a community as a whole, because those are the reasons why people don't leave. And those are also the reasons why hurt people don't get the help that they need. The abusers don't actually get the help that they need because they don't think that anything is wrong, because us as victims continue to let this happen.
And also because it is a cycle.
Yep.
There's something that happened to him that happened to somebody before him, that and they just kept passing it along, and everybody eventually it becomes just part of the family tradition. You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
this is how the men in the family are. You know, and it becomes accepted,
Mhm.
and you're there, and you're like, no, but I love him, and hence the name of the book.
Yeah, exactly.
It's and I'm like, I see it, and like I said, now I'm starting to understand it. But there are those that are like, they just there because they like it. I don't know a lot of people who would stay in a situation because they like that kind of thing. Now there are some people that are into some crazy stuff, but your average person is not going to stay in a relationship like that just because they like it. There's a reason why they're there. They've been manipulated. They've been, you know, told that you're the if you leave me, or if you leave, nobody's, they don't want you. They tell you they do, but as soon as you leave and you get with them, they're going to treat you like trash. I'm the best thing for you. And at
Yeah.
some point you're sitting there like, is this really the best for me?
Yeah, and
And
you second guess yourself. You second guess the thoughts that go through your head. You question your own integrity. It's called gaslighting. So they
mhm,
make you believe things that they believe. They make you believe that the way you remember situations or
mm,
arguments is different.
that's not how it happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not how it happened. You're incorrect. However, the bright and shiny side of this is when you do finally escape and you are able to take your power back. And that feeling is something that is, you can't describe it. It's something where you feel that the last years of your life were filled with lies, were filled with turmoil, and now you have this breath of fresh air and freedom ahead of you. And it takes a while to get there after you escape a relationship, because there is this chemical in our brain called oxytocin, where
Mhm.
we leave somebody or we leave a relationship or situation, and it takes over 30 days for us to finally start to feel better about that decision, because we want what is familiar to us. And that oxytocin that's released when we're in a romantic relationship, when we're happy, sometimes, subconsciously as survivors and victims, we want to feel that. So if we take a beating here or there, subconsciously we make it okay. Well, for me, I stayed with him, and my breaking point, and everybody has to have a breaking point in a relationship like that, was when he had affairs on me, when I found out that he was cheating on me. And my
Mm,
conscious brain was like, oh my gosh, I stayed with you while you beat me, while you emotionally manipulated me, financially tormented me, sexually assaulted me, but then you cheat on me. That's when
mm.
I couldn't take it any longer.
It
And
was like, I'm sorry. It was like you endured all this stuff from him. I took all that you gave me and I accepted it and I loved you for it and and all this, and then this is how you treat me. You know, and some people will say, well, that's all it took. But
Mhm.
everybody has a breaking point, a point of, like a person that's an alcoholic. You have, when you hit rock bottom, or a drug addict, everybody has their own rock bottom, and no two people will hit it the same way. So at some point you hit your rock bottom. That was your rock bottom. That was your way to get out.
Yep,
And
that was my rock bottom. That was the
yeah,
beginning of the escape.
yeah, and so you had to formalize it in your head, and when you were ready to say enough is enough, this is the bridge too far, and I'm out. Now, how did that work? Because you see the movies and they tell you to pack the bag and set it by the door, but in reality, what was that moment, like that very last time that you were in that house and you left for the last time?
Yeah, I love how you said for the last time because typically it takes victims over 7 times to finally leave a domestic violence relationship, and it took me that many as well. I left and came back and left and came back. Well, finally for me, when I left, I didn't have a bag packed by the door because you don't want your abuser to know that you are planning an escape. So
Mm-hmm.
you plan in your head. So for me, leading up to that escape moment, I started to double pay my car payment with our joint checking account. I started to make sure I knew where everything was at all times. If I had to leave very quickly, I had a friend who actually knew what was happening, and she suggested me carrying my ID and a credit card in my boots. I used to wear a lot of tall boots. So
Mm-hmm.
Paul would like to hold on to my purse all the time. So I would then, keep my credit card and keep an ID in my boot. So if I had to leave, if I had to run, I had someplace to go. I could use my credit card to pay for a hotel, or I could go someplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that last time, I remember I frantically packed my things and I got in the car and I left. And it was sad. I ended up crying and bawling my eyes for 3 hours because I ended up driving back to Los Angeles from where he was, where our house was. And it was really hard for me not to go back. And I finally was able to stay away because I started to document things that happened to me. So when I escaped, I sat in front of my computer, very similar to what we're doing at home right now. And I
Right.
just started to document, started to write out some of the incidents that happened, just wanting to read it to myself, just wanting a journal, a diary of some sort to
And,
see if
and
what actually happened really happened to me, right? Because it was
right.
really hard for me to understand and recognize that I was a victim. And when I did that and read it, I was shocked. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm reading the story of somebody else, not Michelle
Wow.
Gray. And
Yeah.
that's when I knew this was detrimental. And I had to figure out a way to stay away for good. And it took another 9, 10 months for me actually to stay away for good. I was still in constant communication with him. He was emotionally
Hmm.
that last year of our relationship was primarily long distance. I had lost my dad. I had torn my ACL skiing. I needed surgery.
Ooh.
So there was some catastrophic things that happened in my life that last year. And of course, Paul wanted to still take care of me.
Of course.
Yeah. So it
Of
was all
course.
manipulation. right? It was all manipulation. But
And
finally, go for it.
but also he probably realized that maybe he wasn't as smart as he thought he was, because you had the credit card and the ID in the boot. So it's like, okay, I formulated this plan, and then when I get out of here, I'm going to leave. And he's probably sitting around thinking that, okay, that's all right. I got this. She don't have that. And then he may have gone through the person and realized, wait a minute, she got me. But, you know, but that was the narcissist in him probably thinking that he had so much control that he knew your next move. He probably thought he knew you better than you knew yourself, not understanding that you had come to the realization or the conclusion that I got to get out of here,
Yeah,
some kind of way.
I had come to that realization exactly, and we ended up getting involved in a lawsuit. I sued him for what he had done to me. And unfortunately, in the state of California, the statute of limitation at that time for criminal prosecution was 2 years. So I couldn't
Mm,
sue him for criminal prosecution, but I was able to sue him civilly. And
okay.
he settled. I can't really talk much about
That,
what
and I would, you know what? I wouldn't ask that
happened,
right, because I understand how those civil things work. And
lawsuits work. But the cool
yeah,
thing about the whole situation is I really had the power in that. I had the upper hand. And I think that he was really, really shocked that I was able to stand in front of him and still be able to take my
hmm
power back and him not be
hmm
able to strip me of that any
hmm
longer. And it
yep.
was very fulfilling to be able to really voice what had happened to me.
Now, have you talked to or seen or had any dealings with him since I guess the lawsuit was the finale?
Yeah, the lawsuit was the finale. So we legally aren't supposed to reach out to each other, of
Good,
course.
good.
But I wouldn't want to. I
Of
do hope
course
and
not.
pray that he's gotten the help that he needs, though, because I believe that abusers can rehabilitate. So
Yes.
I've talked to a therapist for many, many, many years. And even now, in the work that I do, it's really nice to just decompress once a month, talk
Right.
about some of the stories, talk about me being triggered by any of the people that I'm working with in a one-on-one situation where it's confidential. So a
Oh,
therapist is extremely helpful. Now, one day, I hope that he listens to some of this. And one day, I do hope that we can stand up on stage together and
right.
I can tell my side of the story and he can tell his side of the story and we both can be healed. Because, like I said, hurt people hurt people. Now, it doesn't mean
Yes.
I love him any longer. It doesn't mean that I want to be with this man anymore.
Right. But
It does
you've
mean that it can help to represent what an abusive relationship looks like and then how people can recover from it on both
okay.
ways.
Makes sense. Now,
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah.
The book, and there was a play.
Yes.
And I
Mhm.
remember seeing something on YouTube, and it was a one person play, and I gather it's based off of the notes that everything that you wrote, and writing. Also, you have to get it out of your head. It's
Mhm.
journaling. You once you can get it out of your head, it makes room for other stuff. Because if it's just there and stuff just builds up, eh, it drives you crazy. But
Yeah.
I watched the excerpt from the play, and I'm sitting there. I mean, I was looking at the screen, and I'm like, oh my goodness. It's just, and I'm waiting for somebody else to come out to relieve you. And no, it's just her. And you could hear the the pain. You
Mhm.
could tell that you were reliving those moments.
Yeah.
And what was it like after the curtain closes and you're backstage, and I'm sure that it had to be exhausting. You needed a nap, after
Oh,
that.
yeah. So, doing a 65-minute one woman play was probably the hardest thing in the entertainment industry that I've ever had to do. And I literally beat myself up on stage for 65 minutes. and
Wow.
I played over 13 different characters. I played my abuser, of course, but I also played my therapists, my friends. Um, I told a story, and the story was the beginning of the relationship until the end of the relationship. And there's actually an alternate ending if you watch it, uh, where I die. And of course, I'm alive. So it's an
Right.
alternate ending. The play is about 70% accurate. We had to add some things, of course, for theatrical purposes.
Yes, of course.
But
But
it's
I
based.
don't know that you needed that.
Yeah, yeah, right. But it is definitely based off of my relationship. And people used to tell me all the time, "Oh, it must be so therapeutic." And I wasn't ready to hear it yet. So all I wanted to do was yell at them and tell them to go away and they're wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
looking back on it, it was. And I used to have to rehearse it day in and day out. I mean, 65 minutes of dialogue is a lot of dialogue to remember.
I could imagine.
And
I'm sitting here trying to go through this, and it's like, trying to remember the questions that I want to ask, and to do that for for 65 minutes, and at that pace and with all that emotion,
yeah,
that you had to bring it every time, and to be
yeah.
able to do that, it's
It was very difficult. So I performed it. I opened it in 2016 at the Whitefire Solo Fest, and then I performed it at the Hollywood Fringe Festival later on that year. And it's called "But I Love Him." And like Unc said, you can see it online on YouTube. However, the last time I performed it in 2016, I literally just dropped my script and I didn't pick
mm,
it up again. I have a
wow.
copy of my script. It's actually over there, but I have a copy of it that
Mm.
I read through it one other time since then. I haven't been compelled to redo the play. I haven't been compelled to do it again, put it on anywhere. But what it's made me do from there is to be able to write a book, to transition that direction, to be able to tell my story 100% accurately, and then also to be able to start the nonprofit organization Unsilenced Voices. And
Mhm.
it's because of that play, because of the rehearsal day in and day out, because of me expressing what happened to me, which is so incredibly important for healing, I was able to recover.
Well, actually, you probably don't need the play now. That was just the vehicle
Yep.
to get you started on the journey. You know how we get this
Yep.
our first car, and we drive it until it's you don't need it anymore. That was the vessel to get you to the next stage. So
Yeah,
now
and
you
I remember my first car too. It was a little awkward thing. So yeah.
so it got you to that point where, okay, now I've gotten out, I've acted it out, now I've written it out, and I've got this book now, and
Mhm.
so I'm ready to go on to the next thing. And I
Yeah.
guess that is the nonprofit.
Yeah.
Where are you all working?
Yeah. So God makes beautiful things out of broken pieces. And just like his disciples, we all come from not a pretty little house in Westlake Village, right? We all have our hurts and our sins, and we are not perfect people. And I want to say that up front because the growth of Unsilenced Voices has been because of God Almighty, not because of me. I'm just the vessel that He's using. And I started Unsilenced Voices in 2017, and I did all the paperwork myself, and we were 501c3 approved. And then a month after that, I was in Ghana. So
Ooh.
I ended up meeting a Ghanaian doctor in the Los Angeles area, and he said, "Well, go and take your ideas over there." And so I said, "Okay." And then the next step was Sierra Leone. I had been vice president for a nonprofit organization prior to me starting Unsilenced Voices. So I had affiliation in Sierra Leone already. So then I went there and we started to establish a program, multiple programs that now in Sierra Leone. Rwanda contacted me in 2020, and we were able to establish a partnership with IDA Rwanda, and we're expanding to another organization in Rwanda. So we're going to be helping two different organizations in Rwanda. And then
Okay.
this year, which is awesome, I'm super excited. We are doing a domestic violence awareness tour in the United States. We
Okay.
actually have 5 cities in the US. April, we're going to be in Dallas. May, we're going to be in Vegas. July, we're
Okay.
going to be in Los Angeles. Um, September, we're going to be in Florida. And Washington, D.C., we're planning for October.
Oh, okay. You'll be in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's
So I'm
great.
really excited for that. So what we want to
That
do
is great.
partner with existing organizations within the specific cities that we're going to that provide direct services to survivors. We'll invite vendors, but those vendors need to be police officers, case managers, attorneys, traditional and non-traditional therapeutic people, and holistic healers to be able to come so we can provide those services. Some of these survivors and victims need to know how to fill out a restraining order, need to know how to
Hmm.
integrate back into society, integrate back into the workforce. Maybe they need housing assistance or childcare assistance. So we want to be able to create a safe place for them to come to, and then working with an existing organization within that city that can help them along the way when we leave. So it's an amazing concept, and we've got an amazing team behind us making this happen.
Well, I commend you all for what you're doing, because I know, like in a lot of the foreign countries, women are second tier
Yeah.
citizens, and um, it's like that's what I was saying earlier, where it's the tradition of how it's supposed to be. I'm the man. I'm in control. You do what I say, and you don't talk back to me. If you talk back to me, that it's almost like you've committed a crime. And it's crazy
Yeah.
um
In
how that works.
in Sierra Leone, we are doing a lot with the community. So we educate not only women, but men as well. And we come to group together in sensitization programs. So we have village programs, market women and men, um, and sex workers. Now, the sex workers program, I'd love to tell you a quick story if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
So I went to Sierra Leone in this must have been 2018, and met with one of our managers there. And he asked if we can start helping the sex workers on the streets, the young girls who are on the streets selling their bodies. And I said yes. And he took me to a bar and showed me how many of these young girls, ranging from 14 to 19 years of age, were working as sex workers. And they were forced. A lot of them were beaten by their boyfriends or their baby daddies. They didn't have any other resource. They didn't know what else to do. They didn't have a formal education. So, unfortunately, a lot of them don't have protection. A lot of them were beat. They weren't paid. So we went there, and this one girl in particular, her name was Matilda. We told her that we would put her through a vocational training school. She couldn't do sex work any longer, but we would help to pay for her schooling, all of her clothing, lunches, things like that. She said yes. So we said, show up at the school the next day. And she showed up at 6 a.m. I didn't get there until 9. So she was there just waiting, anxiously waiting. And we immediately enrolled her, and she started to flourish. And she was boisterous and loud and um, really sometimes obnoxious to the teachers. Some of the teachers would message me, Michelle, I don't know what to do with Matilda. But she really was a hard, hard worker. And uh, during a Christmas break, she got really sick, and she ended up
Mm,
going back to her village. And we found out that she not only was HIV positive, she had full blown AIDS. And
wow.
she ended up passing away.
Wow.
Um, we have named the program that we operate. We now have 12 girls that we go through this vocational training center. We help other girls as well with traditional schooling and also driving classes. But because of her, we've named this program Matilda's Program, where we help
Oh,
these girls off the streets. And they get an education. They're able to sell bakery things that they make, or tie-dye and garments that they make instead of selling their bodies. And they have self-respect. We teach them about domestic violence. We come into the school and talk about domestic violence issues. And now they're advocates. There's a young girl, her name is Sally Amatu. She started right when Matilda started in the very beginning. And now she advocates with our employees in Sierra Leone, going around to villages and markets around the country and talking about domestic violence and using your voice and speaking up. So it's really, really amazing. It's
that
absolutely
is
wonderful.
great. That is great. And we are the village once again. It goes back to helping others, and I remember seeing a quote by Martin Luther King, and I wrote it down because it says, "Not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great because
Mhm.
greatness is determined by service." And what you all are providing is a service, and the more you help, the more help you'll receive. And you going through what you went through, in order for you to be able to do this, sometimes you have to look back and say, well, why did this happen to me? Why did I go through this? Why did I endure this? And I think now you're starting to see, because had you not gone through what you went through, then who's to say you would even be trying to help others get out of those situations? You'd have been just living your life and going on about your business. But
Yeah.
because you went through what you went through, and nobody should ever have to go through that. But you know, it was a part of the plan for your life.
Yeah, and
And
to those of you out there listening, your story matters.
yeah.
Whether it's small, whether it's medium or large, what you've gone through in your life matters, and your story can make a huge impact on other people's lives. And it's all about speaking up. And this is why we encourage so many people to speak up, because when we start speaking up, we can change the dynamic of certain injustices and situations around the globe. And it's all about using your voice. And you went through certain things, and sometimes, like Unc said, you don't know why things have happened to you.
Mhm.
Well, lo and behold, you can use those situations to then create sustainable change in communities all around the globe. So I greatly encourage you to start documenting some of the things that have happened to you, to write it out, talk it out, express yourself.
Mhm.
And this is also why now I'm able to be a coach. I get to coach and mentor. I know you had Jamie Wright on your show,
Yes.
and she is
Yes.
a former client. She's now a board member with Unsilenced Voices. And I remember when I first met her, she was living in a shelter, the Houston
Mhm.
area women's shelter. And she now is speaking all over the world on uh,
Yes.
live
Jane.
and virtual stages.
Yes,
She's
Jamie
doing
is amazing. In fact, she recommended, because I said, Jamie, do you know anybody who would want to be on the show? And she sends me this list of these people, and I look and I'm like, okay. And it just sat there for a little while, because it's like, okay, do I really want to do this? Is this what I really want to do? Do I want to ask these people? Because you ask people and they say no, and then you get to the point where you're tired of hearing no, and I'm like, you know what? Somebody's going to say yes. And so, yeah, I mean, and that's usually how it works. I have this thing where I tell people, and excuse my language, but you throw shit up against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah, I say
And
mud, but
yeah,
you can say
yeah.
shit.
And I hear Steve Harvey a lot. He says you have not because you ask not. So
Yep.
I just start asking. And I've got a whole list of people that I have asked, some that I have to ask, and some have said yes, some have said no, some have said maybe, but that's par for the course. Now there is a young lady who Talisha Monet, who would like to know. She said, I would love to find out how to help be an advocate?
Okay. There's many ways. Use your voice for one. And then if you are located in the US, if you are in or around any of those cities that I mentioned, Unsilenced Voices, we're revamping our website right now. So the end of this month, which is the beginning of February, there's an
Mhm.
application on there if you want to volunteer at any of the places or sensitization meetings. If you want to be a vendor or a speaker at any of those, we definitely need help. So you can help with your time, you can help with your money. Um, you can go to unsilencedvoices.org. Again, it's unsilencedvoices.org for more information. And I would love to encourage all of you who are listening. We all have a cell phone, take it out. And if you text UV, U as in unsilenced, V as in voices, UV to the number 26786. Again, text UV to 26786. You'll be able to stay in communication with us. So I will be sending out a mass text and email when our website is redone so you can go on and apply. Again, text UV to 26786. And if you are out there and you're a survivor and or a victim and you are just looking to be able to share your voice and you're not exactly sure how to, we do offer courses. We are doing a relationship course. My LLC is actually putting together a relationship course right now to be able to help people overcome challenges. So whether it is figuring out how to monetize things that you've gone through because your story does matter, whether you need some private coaching, if you do text UV to 26786, I'll follow up with you and we'll be able to talk further about those options for you as well.
Okay. Now that we've gotten through all of that, first of all, where can they get your book?
Okay, so if you go to unsilencemyvoice.com, again, it's unsilencemyvoice.com. You can find it there. You can also find information out about the programs that I offer. If you just know that you want the book right away, if you go to amazon.com and type in "But I Love Him" and Michelle Jewsbury, it pops up right away. So you can find it there.
Okay. Now, what does Michelle do when Michelle isn't being the superwoman that she usually is? What do you do? What do you? I mean, I remember seeing something where it said you like to party and have fun. I
Well, faith,
also
family, fun, right? It's always important. Faith, family, fun, or family, faith, fun, whatever order that is, but fun is always there. So I always
okay.
feel fun. But I love to scuba dive. I right now I'm getting into a lot of yoga and Pilates because I want to get my body back the way it was pre-COVID. Well, I know a lot of
Okay.
us out there have
Oh yeah. Oh
COVID,
yeah. We
right?
yeah.
So that's what
oh
I'm working
yeah.
on right now. But
Okay.
I like to I love to eat, hence why I gained the COVID-15. Um, I like to see live entertainment. I love concerts. So one of my friends actually took me to a Dave Matthews Band last year
Ooh,
concert at the
wow.
Gorge.
He's good. They're good.
Oh,
They're
so good.
good.
I'm a huge Dave Matthews Band fan now. So I'll be at the Gorge again this coming year. But scuba dive. Scuba diving is one of my favorite things to do. I learned how to scuba dive in Australia on one of my trips, and you just go under the water. I mean, you are 20, 30, 40 meters under the water, and you just look up and you
Mm.
you just see the beauty of the ocean. And if I wasn't an advocate for what I do right now, I would be an advocate against plastic and styrofoam because, oh man, is that ruining our
Yeah.
world, right? Our oceans and our planet. But I love to scuba dive. It's absolutely amazing.
I also remember hearing about the Dodgers that you like. You like it. You like the
Oh, you
Dodgers.
really
You
have
know.
done your homework, huh?
Oh yeah. My brother. He talks about is Dodger blue. I'm like
Dodger blue, bleed
I'm
blue.
like really, really, I said, well, the next time I find somebody that likes the Dodgers, I'm going to remind them that they had a little incident in, was it 2019 with the Washington Nationals? Now,
You
just
have to remind me, huh?
oh yes, oh yeah. I sat there and because I've I've always, I used to cheer for the Orioles because we didn't have a team. There was no team in DC. And then
Uh-huh.
when they finally moved the team in DC, I was like, oh yes, this is my team forever. And to watch them go through what they went through, losing, seeming like they were going to be moving up to the top, and then just like, and to watch them go from 17-31 to the World Series and win. I
Yeah.
was I was sitting there. I remember during the World Series, I had this baseball that my son had gotten when I taken him to his first baseball game, and he got a baseball. So I'm sitting there with the baseball. I'm like, this has got to be lucky. This has got to be lucky. Every time I hold it, they're winning, but then they would lose at home, and I'm like, okay, so they're actually going to win this whole thing in Houston, and sure enough, they
They
did.
did.
But when they did the walk-off grand slam against the Dodgers, I was like, yes. And I remember thinking, yeah, my brother, he's probably sick right now.
So I still am a Dodger fan. I recently moved to Florida from Los Angeles, but I still definitely am a Dodger fan. I do love the Tampa Bay Rays too. I love the Rays Stadium. It's
Okay.
fun. Baseball is an American pastime. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's something where we can sit and eat peanuts and laugh, and it's kind of a slow game. So
It
it's a
is, but it's
right.
fun to watch. If you understand it, it's
Yeah,
fun to watch because my brother, he used to play baseball. He was a pitcher. And so he got me stuck on baseball. I love all sports, but I can sit and watch because some people can't watch it. They're like, catch me, I watched the ninth inning. You know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
but you've missed all the good stuff in between.
Fun
It's
in
like,
between, right?
yeah.
Yes,
Oh
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
baseball
I love
is
sporting
great.
events, I love concerts, I love all that stuff, but yes, Dodger Blue, good for you, Onk, you did your homework.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm learning how to operate this thing. I figured, because when I first started last year, it was like, okay, you just bring people on and you try to guess at it. But then I start to do my research and watch how other people did it. And what I learned was you have to see what the people that are doing what you want to do, how they do things,
Yeah,
and not necessarily do it the same way they do, but at least learn some of the nuances and the basics. So one of the basic things is to just research your guests, because you never know what you may uncover, and they may be something that they don't, remember, and it's like, you bring up some obscure thing like Dodger Blue, and it's like, okay, really? Yeah, because
yeah.
I've watched enough videos. I mean, like I said, when I put it in YouTube, I said Michelle Jewsbury, and it was like video after video. You've talked to this person and that person, and interview with this person and that person. I'm like, hey, man, I got a whole treasure trove of stuff. So I just started just writing, and then it got to the point where, you know what? There's no need to write all this stuff because the
Yeah.
show is going to be hers. She has a story that I probably didn't really have to ask any questions. All I had to do was say, it's all
Well,
yours. And
yeah,
because your story is amazing. Um, you are an inspiration to many. And you sometimes, like I said, you don't realize who you're inspiring. You don't know who's watching. You don't know who's listening. But all I can say is stay the course. Um, and I know that you're working on another book.
yeah,
So
yeah.
once that book is out and you do some more stuff, maybe I can have you back, and
Perfect.
it'll be great to have you on. And I will be in touch, throughout, just following behind and seeing what's going on, and commenting and saying, hey, but thank you so much for being my guest.
Well,
it's an
thank you.
honor, and I appreciate it. I thank you for saying yes.
Of course, and the more yeses you say, the more exposure you get, and the more people we
Yes.
can impact. So, thank you
Yes.
so much, Ankh. And for all you out there, thank you very much for listening. And remember to text UV to 26786. Thank you so
All
much.
righty. Thank you, Michelle. And you have a wonderful evening and enjoy Florida. What's the weather like down there? Because we were
Oh,
down there
it's
in
lovely.
February of, yeah,
It's
see, we were down
lovely.
there about in February of 2021. We went down there and near, I think it was Orlando or what is it?
Kissimmee.
Kissimmee. Yeah, we call it Kissimmee, but it's Kissimmee. Yeah, we were down there and, you know, waking up in the morning in February with a walking outside with a t-shirt and shorts was like, and then we got back home and it was winter time and we got back to reality and we're like, I want to go back,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. So it
but
is. It's
again,
lovely. I like
well,
Florida.
you enjoy, or you went from one warm place to another, so
Yeah.
can't beat that.
No.
But again, thank you so much, Michelle, and you have a wonderful evening. And like I said, I would definitely be in touch, and I know a couple of people will be texting that number to get information.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ank, and you have a great rest of your night.
You do the same, Michelle Jewsbury. Everybody, good night. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I thank each and every one of you for coming through. Hey, how you doing, cuz? Thank you for coming through. I appreciate it. And it's about that time for me to get out of here. And then I'll be back next week with another guest. So I appreciate you. And remember to be happy on purpose and know that I believe in you, believe in you too. I'm out. Peace.